I'm standing before you today because a lady not much older than I am now died and gave me my life back. I will never be able to put into words how grateful I am for that decision of her being an organ donor and her family consenting to that process. All I can hope for is that the universe somehow lets them know that I am trying to make a difference and I will spend my life repaying that debt. How can I explain to her family the impact they have had on my life and those of my family and friends' lives also? All I can hope for is that the universe lets them know that I am trying to make a difference. Me standing here talking to you now is how I want to repay that debt. Because I want to have a conversation with you all about talking about what you want to happen to your organs when you die. The reality is, people are dying because we don't talk about organ donation when we are alive. 12,000 people in the UK in the last decade died or were removed from the transplant waiting list. Of the 7,700 people who were removed from the list, they died a short time later. They simply got too sick, waiting too long. I'm going to take 100 of people in the room, but that actually equates to the number of people who will die waiting on a transplant by March this year, less than 3 months away. And statistically, I'm going to take 100 of you in the room again, and 58 of you, just over half, will have registered to be an organ donor. And that's actually the highest percentage in the whole of the UK. The fact is, less than one of you will die in circumstances where you could be deemed a potential organ donor. The harsh statistic is you are much more likely to need an organ than ever be in a position to donate. And I bet my life, if every single one of you were told the only way you could live and lead a healthy life was to accept an organ, you wouldn't hesitate to take one. So why then have 48 of you, nearly half, not registered to be an organ donor? It should be said that about 3 of you in this room will have registered to opt out of organ donation. And while that's a decision I obviously personally struggle with, it is one I believe should always be fully respected. So the question is, why are so many people dying waiting? In my opinion, apathy. We simply do not believe that this subject will come across our door. And the reality is, for 99% of us, it won't. So that is the problem that I'm looking a solution to, because currently there are more people needing an organ than there are organs available. In March this year, the transplant waiting list was at its highest ever, 8,096 people waiting on a transplant, 276 of those being children. The trend is that more people are being added to the list than are being transplanted, and so the list is going to continue to grow. Yet we do not need a miracle drug, a new scientific intervention, or endless amounts of cash to fix the problem. All we need is people to register as an organ donor and have a conversation with their family and tell them what they want to happen on their death. Imagine if every chronic illness could be treated as simply as that. In the UK, we currently have an opt-in system of organ donation. And what that means is everybody is considered an organ donor unless they opt out. However, your family will always have the final say as to what is to happen. In fact, the statistics from 22-23 actually show that 140 families overrode their loved one's decision to be an organ donor. Now, the legalities and moralities around that topic are a completely different TED Talk. But imagine the difference it would make to your family. In the most horrific, painful circumstances, they are unsure what to do because you haven't had that conversation. And then imagine in those circumstances where you've had that conversation and they are completely comfortable and know what you wanted to happen. The stats are harsh. 90% of families support organ donation if they know their loved one's wishes. And if they don't, it drops to 50%. In my charitable work with Transplant Sport Northern Ireland, I have met the most amazing, humbling and selfless donor families. They tell me that donating their loved one's organs has provided them with immense comfort, and it has really helped and healed in the grieving process. And you see, the transplant recipients that I am privileged to know in Transplant Sport Northern Ireland, they don't just live. They really grab life and they run with it. Speaking personally, when you know you're alive because somebody has died prematurely and given you your life back, it changes your perspective on absolutely everything. You want to make big, brave, bold decisions, which actually aren't that big, brave, or bold when you've been through the transplant process. But you really want to have a life worth living and not worry about the small stuff. Imagine if there were more people like that living amongst us. And the harsh reality is 496 people didn't get that life-altering opportunity last year. Why? Because people do not have a conversation as to what they want to happen when they die. We don't want to tempt fate by discussing death. So how do we culturally change that? How do we change people's perception of talking about their own mortality? I had to face mine when I was 25, so I am very comfortable and think it's a very healthy process to discuss your death and to discuss what you want to happen. However, I'm very acutely aware that my experience is not that of the vast majority of people here. I mean, how do you bring that into your daily conversation? You're just in the door from work. Yeah, I had a great day at work. I'm just putting the dinner on. Oh, by the way, when I die, I want all my organs to be donated. And yet that is exactly what we need to happen. You see, the solution to increasing the number of potential organ donors is so simple. However, it would appear our ability to talk about our own mortality is completely radical. So how do we ensure that families have that conversation? Can you legislate for that? Do we say that it must become part of a baby's or teenager's vaccination process? Do we say that you're prevented from accessing healthcare unless you can prove you've had that conversation? The reality is that none of the above are even feasible, let alone desirable. And we don't need a dramatic change in the law either, where the state automatically owns your organs and transplants them on death automatically. I mean, I don't know any transplant recipient who would feel comfortable with that. Receiving a transplant, it's referred to as receiving the gift of life. And I am standing here in front of you all of living proof of that. So if I am to hope that the transplant waiting list is to become history, the only way I can see of that happening is by starting to have this conversation. That every one of you goes home and has that conversation with your loved ones and your family and your friends. And they then have that conversation with their loved ones, their family and their friends. And so the chain continues. I'm going to show you two pictures. So this is the first picture here. And this is the Northern Ireland Transplant Games team, 27 individuals who all travelled to Germany in August to compete in the World Transplant Games. The ability to go on a global stage and perform the sport at the highest level, and also the ability to thank their organ donors. And these 5 individuals are the only people from the first picture who would still be here today if it wasn't for an organ donor. And these aren't just any 5 individuals. These guys are 5 living donors who've all donated a kidney. 3 of the young men, altruistically, walked in off the street and donated a kidney to a stranger. And yet, that's not the level of altruism I am asking you all to have. All I'm asking you to do is to go home and have a conversation as to what you want to happen on your death with your loved ones. So whilst I would have loved my idea worth spreading was more radical, that it was easy or there was a scientific solution to there being less organs available than those that are needed. Ethically, morally, and legally, I cannot see any other way than to build momentum for this than asking you all to please go home and have that conversation. Thank you.